And isn't that fucking crazy? And there's a bunch of free, sorry, I'm going nuts, but isn't it crazy? There's a bunch of free little libraries in my town. I don't know where you live, but like books can be free and they can change your life. Like legitimately, this costs $7 to change your life for $7. Isn't that freaking awesome? Do me a favor and never read another business book again. I have read hundreds, and we learn pretty quickly that they more or less are all saying the same thing. You might get one golden nugget out of it. And wouldn't it be cool if all those golden nuggets were just, put into a single book instead of having to go through 300 pages of each individual book to get like a paragraph of good stuff? So here's what I recommend you read instead. And we're going to do something a little differently. We're going to go to this new bookshelf, to the house I just moved into. And I have zero plans on which books I'm going to pick, but I'm going to look at the shelf. And when I see a book that makes sense to me to recommend that you would be better, would be a better use of your time rather than reading a business book, then I'm going to do it. And I'm going to tell you why it impacted me. And we'll go from there. So, welcome. Stay a while. Let's go track down some books. So let's see what we got over here. First of all, I didn't organize any of these in a specific way. So there are business books mixed in with fiction, mixed in with all sorts of stuff. And I can see stuff that I used to read in the past, right? Like 4 Hour Work Week, classic one, obviously. My wife is reading Strong Ground, or did read Strong Ground by Brene Brown. And let's see, there's a lot of Hemingway in here. We have the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families, which is based on the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And so there's a lot of mixture in here. But the book that honestly is standing out most to me in terms of one I would recommend, I'm gonna go with this one. So I grabbed this while in Houston. Just saw it on the shelf, and it's really kind of kicked a lot of things, but it's Rene Descartes' Discourse on Method. And what's interesting about this book is, first of all, you're probably not going to love it if you need to be stimulated, right? That's not necessarily what it's about. But it really leans on this idea of, if you can just, it's kind of what's called first principles thinking, right? If you can just get down to the smallest truth, the smallest actionable thing, you can start to understand how these more complex things just fall into place, right? One of the things I encounter with my work a lot is they have this goal or this target or whatever. Let's brighten that up a little bit. And they are just so overwhelmed with like, man, I know what it is. I know what I want, or at least I have a really strong perception of what I want, but it's just too complex. It's too big. It's too far away, whatever it is. And then it just kind of it yields inaction or imposter syndrome or whatever core emotion. And long story short, it just kind of keeps staying far away because you don't really make any constructive strides towards the thing, right? And where discourse is really good, and it's almost like a level of arrogance of being like, hey, it is so obvious that if you just get it down to the smallest first thing and you do that, then the next thing will yield itself, and then it will yield another one, and then it will yield another one. And so it really helped me in terms of, combined with my belief in first principles thinking, is if you can just think of your life in terms of a bunch of first steps, then you're only going to take one step at a time. And in many ways, what people say, life only makes sense looking backwards. In many ways, it like forces you into the present and just think of, what is the highest leverage, smallest possible useful action I can take today in the direction of this thing I perceive as valuable or whatever. And so you blend all these things. Like I think of it as directional discipline, right? And so instead of distracted discipline, which is, hey, I want this big thing, let me just kind of do whatever, It's no, what is the smallest actionable thing I can do that serves the direction? And for me, my direction is hit my potential by helping the most people hit their potential. And so, for instance, like doing a video like this, I already think these things, I possess this knowledge. And to me, if I don't post something like this, whether you're getting value out of it or not, then I'm not taking the smallest actionable, step towards hitting my potential by helping you hit your potential, right? If you don't get anything out of this video, that's totally fine. It's YouTube, it's entertainment, you can spend your time wherever you want. But if you are someone who is really stuck in the complex, or you've got really big goals and just seems like almost, how the hell do I get there? A book like Discourse is way more freaking valuable to you than, I don't want to name any business book, right? And that also comes down to the concept of everything works. You got to find what works for you. And I find the smaller you make the steps, the more digestible, the more you're just like think in terms of first steps, to where you don't need it to make sense looking forwards. You're perfectly comfortable with being like, I'm just going to take one step at a time, and then I'll look backwards and be like, oh, that was the series that yielded what I have now. Discourse is going to be, it's going to speak to you, right? And another word is just mark up all your books, man. Like, mark them up. I used to treat books as sacred objects and be like, I can't mark this up. Books are freaking magic, and they are. But Ryan Holiday, which is actually another book over here, this is the fourth one in his series on the virtues. I saw in a YouTube video of his, he said, a book is the author's argument. You should be allowed to argue back. And the moment I heard that, I was like, man, I read hundreds of books, probably thousands of books at this point. And I'm like, I was never arguing back. And so I'm going back to a lot of books I really, really enjoyed, and seeing it from this whole new perspective of like, oh, wow, that's really useful to me now, or I disagree with that entirely, and that kind of stuff. So take that along with you. If we move just over here a little bit, obviously, everybody and their brother is going to recommend this, and it's for a reason. Meditations, Marcus Aurelius. The cool thing about this to me, because everyone's got their opinions on it, I think the coolest thing to me is anytime someone creates something for themselves, it just, that's this most pure way, right? And ultimately, I think, because I'm obsessed with potential, I think if you are writing something for yourself or acting on something for yourself that nobody else sees, with the intent of like learning more deeply about who you are, getting better, all this kind of stuff, that's the purest thing you can do, whether it gets as widely circulated as this, which Marcus had no intention of it ever being public, or not, right? Like, if you are actively doing something to improve yourself and nobody is looking at it, and just discovering the person who you spend every second of your life with, you, to a greater depth, you are just as valuable as Marcus is for yourself, right? So I cannot state that enough. As like, I tell this to my clients all the time. I say, you spend every second of your life with you. Wouldn't you want that to be the person you trust the most, right? One of the best ways to do that is to reflect. And yeah, Marcus is the gold standard on that, but don't put pressure on yourself. Just freaking write, send yourself voice memos, record, just press record and just speak. It doesn't have to mean anything in the moment. Many times meaning is extracted later. So at the very least, just freaking document somehow. One line a day. I just wrote 3,800 words this morning on gratitude. Whether that's useful or not, who knows, right? But the act of documenting it and solidifying a belief, or getting out my perspective, or whatever it is, I cannot tell you how big the dividends are for doing that over the course of a lifetime. And I've only been taking it seriously for a little while, and it's huge. So, quite frankly, meditations, if you just read this 2, 3, 4 times a year and didn't read any business books the rest of your life, you would accomplish more reading this than reading 1,000 business books. Firmly believe that. And if you disagree, feel free to comment. And then I'm diving into essential writings, the essays of Emerson right now. Somebody turned me on to Self-Reliance. Absolutely read Self-Reliance. It's like 20 pages. And I don't say this lightly, and normally I wouldn't say it at all. But self-reliance, if you read the 20 pages written by Emerson, it will change your life. It's kind of impossible not to. And I'm not the only person who said that. So let's go to this side over here and see what we find over there. All right, so now we're we're on the other side. You can see all the Harry Potters here. We've got Shogun, that was really good for fiction. We got some Sally Rooney. Man, if you are like melancholy and kind of weird, read Sally Rooney. So these are all fiction recommendations thus far. But there are a bunch of business books on this side as well, right? Like we've got Get a Grip, which is a fictional version of a company based on Traction, which you might have heard of, which is based on EOS and all that sort of stuff. A lot of people swear by that, right? So that's a business that we got. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We've got Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. We have got, man, what else have we got on the business side? I got a John C. Maxwell book that I didn't finish because, propaganda. There are some good ones in here. Obviously, Napoleon Hill as an example. So Think and Grow Rich is right there. We've got The Richest Man in Babylon. I actually would recommend this one because it is more entertaining from like a fable point of view. We've got, I could just keep talking about all this sort of stuff, but really the bangers are up here. And so in terms of just pure recommendations, I've got one for you, and that is read biographies. If you are to swap business books with one genre, make it biographies. Just do it, right? Autobiographies, regular biographies, doesn't freaking matter. There is so, let's put it this way. If business books are like related to, let's relate books in general to like social media, right? Business books are Instagram, TikTok. They're short form, right? Again, it is just like a blink of, hey, there's a bunch of words in here, but it's really thin gruel in terms of actual use and value, because a business book is always going to present, in almost every case, the most shining, sterling, bright colored representation of whatever the topic is, right? Hey, it started with this and now it's amazing and it's this, right? Biographies, you can't do that. Like with the biography, it is the whole life. There is nowhere to hide in a biography, right? It is placing you as close to possible in the room with that figure, living or dead, and just experiencing all of it. And in that, you learn so much more, and it's so much more useful to how, like, something I do a lot is I place myself in the room and I think, how would I handle that? And I think so far, and if you have recommendations, please freaking put them in the comments, because I am hooked on this now. But I think this is the best biography I've ever read. And it is Truman by David McCullough, one of my favorite authors. And I'm placing myself in the room of him at the summit with Churchill and Stalin, or placing myself in the room as he's getting the details of Oppenheimer's work on the Manhattan Project. And the level of thinking and just humanity and morality required to be like, am I dropping this bomb on thousands of people with the belief that it will end the war a year sooner, 2 years sooner? Crazy. I'm not going to give my opinion on that, because that's not what this is about. But just to like sit there and in many ways feel the level of insignificance of what you've done thus far in comparison to that, I think is really, really valuable. Not being as like, oh, I'm going to beat myself up and I'm never going to accomplish something of interest or anything like that. More is like that Harry Truman is a human, was a human, just like I am. And he was just placed in an extraordinary situation. And to like kind of place yourself there and think, what would I do? And that is what I mean by earlier looking on that side of the bookshelf is just the more and more you can reflect on your life, the more and more you can look inward and say, what do I believe? What are my values? What do I think I'm capable of? Have I actually like tested that? Right? Do I have grit? Do I have mettle? Do I have morality? Do I like humanity? All these things. Whatever the biography is, you are going to have these level of feelings based on your interest in the subject, right? I'm presuming you're not going to pick up a biography of someone you're not interested in. So the value of that is so huge, so huge. And it just, to me, pays out not even tenfold, I would say 100-fold on any business book I've ever read. I can't think of one business book and been like, that changed my life. Not one. Whereas I can think of individual chapters in this biography. There's a Team of Rivals. I got on a president kick recently. So this is about Lincoln's cabinet. There's Ulysses S. Grant. I read that a few years ago. Didn't mark it up. Just finished it by marking it up, right? It is, if there is one genre I plan on picking up more and more, and I didn't come into reading seriously until I was like 25 years old, and I'm 36 now, it will be biographies, right? It is highly likely that if you were to look at what I read on percentage, and I read a lot now, I would say biographies is going to be at least 30-40% of that compared to all the other genres. And so if there is a person who you are inspired by and there is a biography available of that person, pick it up. Don't wait. Spend the $25 or whatever it is, or go to a used bookstore. I just bought 3 amazing books yesterday for $26 combined dollars. Going to bookstores is like an absolute favorite thing to do of mine. Is do it. Just do it. I don't care if you don't even have $20. Go lobby someone for $20 and go do it and watch your life change, because books are magic. Books on other people's lives are freaking, I can't even describe it. It's amazing. So that is my overall recommendation. This is actually only a fraction of my books. I have a few more in my home office. So what I'm going to do is, just because I know the good ones are in there, I will grab some rapid fire and then we'll be done. And that'll be the video. And thanks for being here. All right, let's freaking go. Since you've been here this long, I'm just going to kind of give you my favorite fiction books of all time. And so my favorite fiction book ever, man, I am not organized here. Favorite fiction book of all time, Picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde. Read it numerous times. One of the best uses, one of the best literary minds ever. Probably second favorite, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Hemingway. You either love him or you hate him. I freaking love him. Pretty much own every Hemingway imaginable. I cannot find my copy of A Fan's Notes by Frederick Exley. Really, really freaking good. And Psycho, like read that. And one recently to where I finished reading it and I was like, is that the best fiction book I've ever read? It's definitely a top 5, is Lonesome Dove. If you are into Westerns, if you're into like gritty, amazing dialogue, holy shit. Like I'm an absolute snob for dialogue, to the point where I just annoy the hell out of my wife if we're watching a movie and I'm just like, this writing sucks. She's like, I cannot watch movies with you if you don't like it. So this freaking incredible. But back to biographies quick, some honorable mentions. If you want a modern biography, probably one of the best I've read, Shoe Dog. And again, it's the same thing, to where what a freaking delusion, obsession mindset that Phil Knight had. And then you start like placing yourself in the actual company in the early stages, where he was talking to lawyers and boardrooms all the time. And I'm just like, man, I'd be so freaking stressed. And, but it just kind of shows the power of believing in something, no matter how delusional, and being willing to put up with all of that stress because you just can't not do the thing, right? So this is an amazing one. What I really like, another David McCullough one, Wright Brothers, and anything on the Wright Brothers is good, but this one's great because there's the story of the Wright brothers really quickly, I just feel compelled to say this, is like they were up against at the time basically governments and entire states and all that sort of stuff trying to solve the conundrum of human flight. And these were just two guys who owned a bicycle repair shop basically in Ohio. And the power of the way they were thinking, and again, getting into their lives is huge, but the power of the way they were thinking about that, because a normal human being, and if you can be anything, don't be normal, but a normal human being would look at that and be like, the odds are so stacked against us. There's no freaking chance, all that sort of stuff. They didn't care, right? They solved so many problems by kind of using first principles thinking. And instead of thinking like, what's the best machine? What's the best horsepower? What's the best whatever? They would go to the library and read books on birds and how birds would fly. It's like, let's go back to the absolute first principle, the truth, and being like, well, birds fly. How do they do it? Right. But the coolest thing about it was going up against these just Goliaths. How did they accomplish what they did? I think it's down to this mentality where everyone was trying to achieve human flight to see who could get there first and who could profit from it the most. And these guys would work all year so that they could go out to North Carolina in the summer and say, how much money can we make all year so we can put it into the flyer, right? And just that level of thinking, I talk to people all the time where it's honestly not their fault. I thought this way for a really, really long time, where they look at their business as like, okay, I have a business so it can provide for me. And I totally get that thinking. I just don't think it's the most useful. I think the most useful thinking you could possibly have, and everyone kind of brings up JFK when I say this, is not what can your business give you, what can you give your business? And same thing with relationships. Same thing with anything you do, is what can I give this? I've already received the ultimate gift of air in my lungs, feet on the ground, and the ability to express myself. What can I give the world through those tools, right? And so I find that if you can flip that mentality and say, how much can I give to discover what truly matters? In this case, for them, they were like, how can we give as much as we possibly can financially, time, resources, sacrifices, all that kind of stuff to discover something, not profit from something. And yeah, they ultimately turned into incredibly wealthy people. And so it's a success story in that regard. But I think it would have been a success for them regardless. It's just the act of discovery. And that requires giving, not taking. And so it's something like that. That's what I mean. Like, if you get into a biography and you see something like that, you're immediately like, holy shit, that changes how I think, right? Not, oh, here's how to build a perfect funnel, or here's how to work 4 hours a week. Like, 4-hour work week is great, but it doesn't change one's life most of the time, because something has to happen before that, right? A 4-hour work week is a mechanism, not the thought process. You know what I mean? So that's that. Also, just final, and then we're out of here, is I just wanted to mention Ron Chernow. Amazing. He just did a book on Mark Twain. I haven't read it yet, but looking forward to that at some point. Ron Chernow wrote Washington. I have Hamilton right here. He wrote Grant over here. So just one of my favorite authors. Him and David McCullough are like the absolute, bangers for history's greatest figures, pretty much. And then this one, I just got this at that bookshop yesterday. It's Plutarch's Lives, right? And so this is like very much like an encyclopedia version. The story with that is in Lincoln, in Truman, and all this sort of like Grant, they all reference Plutarch and how influential Plutarch was and all that sort of stuff. And Plutarch, I believe, was around like the 80 BC era, maybe 80 AD, can't remember. And he just like, again, biographies on lives, his personal perspective of Caesar, of Antony, of I don't know if I'm saying this right, Sulla. I've got a lot to learn in that regard. But so I got Roman lives at brand new at a bookstore, and it was like $20. And then I found the whole thing, Greek lives, Roman lives, just all the lives he ever wrote in a single volume. And this was like $7, right? And isn't that fucking crazy? And there's a bunch of free, sorry, I'm going nuts, but isn't it crazy? There's a bunch of free little libraries in my town. I don't know where you live, but like books can be free and they can change your life. Like legitimately, this costs $7 to change your life for $7. Isn't that freaking awesome? So let's wrap the video there. Long story short is I don't ever plan on reading another business book again. I don't know that you ever need to read another business book again. I would much rather you like write a book rather than read a business book. But if you're not going to write and you are dead set on improving yourself, freaking read biographies, man. Read them. And then read everything else that interests you as well, right? Like I have a ton of fiction in here that I could recommend because it's just great and entertaining, and you can still learn a ton from that. Like I learned a ton from Lonesome Dove. I learned a ton from Hemingway. Like just read as much as you possibly can. It is the cheapest way to just outpace everybody else. It just is, right? And so I would much rather you read the good shit right away than, read 100. I'm not saying reading the business books was a total waste of time. I learned some things, but most of what I did in business to be as successful as I was came from quite literally like my own mind or inspired by something not in a business book and been like, well, why not? And just see, right? So you don't run a business by reading a business book. You run a business by throwing a bunch of shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. And so I would much rather you learn more about yourself and what you're capable of than how to run a successful business. Because if you know yourself, you will be successful in any endeavor, full stop, the end, when you trust that person the most. And one of the cleanest ways, the most magical ways, the cheapest ways to learn about yourself can be through the eyes of a Truman or a Lincoln or whatever, and say, how would I handle that? How would I handle that real freaking thing, right? How would I handle secession if I was Lincoln? What, right? And in that, solving some business funnel or whatever seems pretty freaking trivial, right? And you just get to know the person that runs the business. You are the asset, right? And so don't read another business book. Like if I were advising you and you're still with me, if chances are, if you didn't like me, you would have clicked off a long time ago. So I'm presuming that you're still here because you either are really mustering up a counter argument to get pissed at me, or you actually agree. Then frickin' don't read another business book. Read biographies. And the first one I'd recommend, they're thick. This one is so freaking good. So yeah. But anyone who interests you, find the person who most interests you, doesn't matter what genre they're in, and read their shit. Cool? Cool. Thanks for being here. Don't know when I'll be doing another one. This one wasn't planned at all, but it's fun to share a little bit of what I care about with you. So yeah, like I said, don't know when I'll be doing another one, but I know I will be. And if you want to see that, just hit subscribe, hit the little bell icon to get notified, and we'll see you next time.